The message came through while I was sitting in gate B12 at Minneapolis St. Paul International, nursing my third overpriced coffee and watching snow pile up on the runway. My flight to Denver had been delayed twice, and I was already calculating how this would mess up my logistics presentation tomorrow morning. Then my phone buzzed with a text from Aven. "Colby, I think we should try an open marriage." I stared at the screen for a full 30 seconds, waiting for the follow-up message that would clarify this was some kind of joke. Maybe she'd meant to type open communication or open discussion, but no second message came. 18 years of marriage, and this is how she drops the bomb. Not over dinner, not during one of our increasingly rare heart-to-heart conversations, but via text message while I'm stranded at an airport 3 states away. I'm Colby Aven, 48 years old, logistics manager for a mid-size manufacturing company, and apparently the last person to know my wife wants to explore other options. The irony wasn't lost on me. I spend my days coordinating supply chains and managing complex delivery schedules, but I completely missed the signs that my own marriage was being rerouted. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. Part of me wanted to call her immediately, demand an explanation, maybe even catch the next flight home to hash this out face to face. But another part of me, the part that had been noticing Aven's late nights at the office, her sudden interest in new clothes, and the way she'd started keeping her phone face down during dinner, wasn't entirely surprised. I typed back, "Sure." Then I opened a new browser tab and started researching divorce attorneys in Minnesota. The thing about logistics is that timing is everything. You need to anticipate problems before they become disasters, and you always need a backup plan. While other passengers around me complained about the delays, I was busy setting my own schedule. By the time my flight finally boarded 2 hours later, I had accomplished more in those 120 minutes than most people do in a week of marriage counseling. I'd filled out the preliminary divorce paperwork online, scheduled a consultation with the highest-rated family law attorney in Minneapolis, and even updated my emergency contact information at work. But the real masterstroke came to me somewhere over Iowa, as I watched the lights of small towns scattered across the frozen landscape below. If Aven wanted things to be open, I'd give her more transparency than she bargained for. I pulled out my phone and sent a text to Maya, Aven's younger sister. "Hey, need to ask you a huge favor. Can you call me when you get this?" Maya called back before we started our descent into Denver. "What's going on, Colby? You sound weird." "Your sister just texted me about wanting an open marriage." Silence on the other end. Then, "Oh, that witch. I knew something was up when she started asking me about dating apps last week. I need your help with something. It's going to sound crazy, but hear me out." 20 minutes later, Maya had agreed to the most unconventional favor I'd ever asked of anyone. She understood exactly what I was trying to accomplish, and more importantly, she was angry enough at her sister to go along with it. The next morning, while Aven was probably expecting some kind of emotional response to her bombshell text, I was sitting in a Denver hotel room executing phase 1 of what I was already thinking of as Operation Open Season. First, I updated my Facebook relationship status to Married to Maya Aven. Maya had done the same from her account in Minneapolis, along with posting a photo of the two of us from last Christmas, carefully cropped to look more intimate than it actually was. Then I shared Aven's text message in our family group chat, along with a timestamp showing when I'd filed the divorce papers. The message was simple. Since Aven wants to explore new relationships, Maya and I decided not to waste any time either. Life's too short to wait around. My phone started buzzing immediately. First my daughter Amelia, then my son Ross, then what seemed like every cousin, aunt, and family friend who had access to social media. I turned the phone to silent and went to give my presentation. The meeting went better than expected. Maybe it was the adrenaline, or maybe it was the strange clarity that comes from having your entire life explode in the span of 12 hours. But I nailed every detail of the supply chain optimization proposal. By lunch, I had a signed contract and a bonus that would more than cover my legal fees. When I finally checked my messages, there were 47 missed calls and twice as many text messages. Most were from family members demanding explanations. A few were from mutual friends who had apparently already heard rumors. And buried in the middle was a series of increasingly frantic messages from Aven. "What the hell is this about Maya?" "Colby, call me right now." "This isn't funny. Take down those posts." "I can't believe you're being so childish about this." "Everyone is calling me. You're embarrassing our whole family." I screenshot each message and forwarded them to Maya, along with a note. "Phase 1 complete. Ready for Phase 2? Her response came back immediately. "Let's burn this thing down." Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I flew back to Minneapolis the next evening, taking my time at baggage claim and grabbing dinner at the airport before heading home. Let Aven wonder where I was for a few more hours. According to Maya, our sister-in-law Janet had already called 3 times trying to get the real story, and half the neighborhood was buzzing with gossip about our sudden relationship status change. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway, but Aven's car was there. I sat in my truck for a moment, looking at the home we'd shared for over a decade. 2-story colonial, perfectly maintained lawn, the kind of place that screamed successful suburban couple. From the outside, we probably looked like we had it all figured out. I grabbed my suitcase and headed for the front door, keys ready. But before I could even get the key in the lock, the door swung open. Aven stood there in her work clothes, sharp blazer, designer jeans, the kind of calculated casual that cost more than most people's formal wear. Her blonde hair was pulled back in what she called her power ponytail, and her makeup was flawless, despite the fact that it was almost 9 o'clock at night. "We need to talk," she said. "Hello to you too, honey. My trip was great. Thanks for asking." She stepped aside to let me in, but I could see the tension in every line of her body. Just don't with the sarcasm right now. I set my suitcase down in the entryway and looked around the living room. Everything was exactly as I'd left it. Aven's magazines fanned out perfectly on the coffee table, throw pillows arranged with mathematical precision, not a single item out of place. It was like living in a showroom. "So," I said, settling into my usual chair, "how's the open marriage thing working out for you so far?" Her face flushed red. "You know exactly what you did, Colby. The whole family thinks you're having an affair with my sister. Technically, according to your text message, it wouldn't be an affair anymore. Isn't that the whole point of being open?" "That's not what I meant, and you know it." "Really? Because I think we should try an open marriage. Seems pretty straightforward to me. I'm a logistics guy, Aven. I deal in clear communication and specific instructions." She started pacing back and forth in front of the fireplace, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor. "I meant we should talk about it. Discuss the possibility. Maybe see a counselor first." "Funny thing about that," I said, pulling out my phone. "I've been going through our text history while I was waiting for my flight. You know what I noticed? Over the past 6 months, our conversations have been mostly about schedules, household maintenance, and whose turn it is to call the landscaper. Not exactly the foundation for a deep discussion about marriage philosophy. That doesn't mean you get to humiliate me on social media." "Humiliate you? I thought I was being supportive. You wanted to explore other relationships, so I figured I'd get a head start. Maya's single, available, and unlike some people, she actually returns my calls." Aven stopped pacing and stared at me. "You can't seriously be telling me you're attracted to my sister." "Why not? She's smart, funny, honest about what she wants. Plus, she's in great shape from all that time at the gym." I paused, letting that sink in. "Speaking of which, how's Devin these days?" The color drained from her face so fast I thought she might faint. "What are you talking about?" I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a folded piece of paper, a hotel receipt I'd found in her purse while looking for my insurance card before my trip. The Marriott downtown charges $240 a night for their executive suites. That's a lot to spend on a work meeting, don't you think? She grabbed for the receipt, but I held it out of reach. "Where did you get that?" "Your purse, right next to the credit card you thought I didn't know about." I unfolded the paper and pretended to study it. "February 14th, Valentine's Day. How romantic. I was wondering why you had to work so late that night." "It's not what you think." "Really? Because what I think is that you've been planning this open marriage conversation for a while now. Probably ever since you started whatever this thing is with Devin Pace from your office. The guy with the BMW and the expensive cologne who somehow always needs to work late on the same nights you do." Aven sank down onto the couch, her perfect composure finally cracking. "Colby, Save it." I stood up and headed for the stairs. "I'm tired, and I have an early meeting tomorrow. We can finish this conversation later." "Where are you going?" "To pack some clothes. Maya's expecting me for dinner tomorrow night, and I don't want to keep her waiting. Unlike some people, I believe in being considerate to the people I'm in a relationship with." I was halfway up the stairs when she called after me. "This isn't over, Colby." I paused and looked back down at her. "You're right about that. We're just getting started." The next morning, I woke up early and did something I hadn't done in months. I made myself a proper breakfast. Eggs, toast, coffee that didn't come from a gas station. Simple pleasures that somehow felt revolutionary after years of grabbing energy bars while rushing out the door. Aven had already left for work, but she'd left a note on the kitchen counter. "We need to talk tonight. This has gone far enough." I crumpled up the note and tossed it in the trash. Then I took a photo of my breakfast and posted it on Facebook with the caption, "Maya's recipe for the perfect morning. Some things are worth getting up early for." Within an hour, the post had 15 likes and 8 comments, mostly from family members who were clearly fishing for more information about this sudden relationship development. I responded to each comment with just enough detail to keep the speculation going. At work, my assistant Olivia was waiting by my office door with a cup of coffee and a knowing smile. "So," she said, following me into the office and closing the door behind her, "Maya Varen, huh? I always thought she was the better-looking sister." Word travels fast around here. "Janet called my sister last night. Apparently the whole neighborhood is talking about it." Olivia settled into the chair across from my desk. "Want to tell me what's really going on?" I'd known Olivia for 6 years, ever since she'd started as a temp and worked her way up to basically running my entire department. She was smart, discreet, and had never liked Aven. Something about fake energy, she'd told me once. "Aven wants an open marriage," I said, "so I'm giving her one." "With her sister? That's cold, Colby. I respect that." "It's not what you think. Maya and I aren't actually together. But Aven doesn't need to know that yet." Olivia grinned. "Oh, this is going to be good. What do you need me to do?" "Nothing illegal. Nothing that could get either of us in trouble at work. But if anyone asks, Maya and I have been growing closer for a few months now. Consider it done. And Colby? For what it's worth, I never understood what you saw in Aven anyway. You deserve better." The morning passed quickly, filled with the usual routine of coordinating shipments and managing vendor relationships. But around 11, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. "Colby Varen. This is Devin Pace. I think we need to talk." I leaned back in my chair, smiling. "Devin, how nice to hear from you. What can I do for you?" "You know exactly why I'm calling. This thing with Aven's sister needs to stop." "I'm sorry, I'm not following. What thing with Maya?" "Don't play dumb. Everyone knows what you're doing." "What I'm doing is dating a wonderful woman who appreciates honesty and direct communication. Is there something wrong with that?" There was a long pause on the other end of the line. "Aven is really upset about this?" "Well, that's unfortunate, but I'm sure she'll figure out how to manage her emotions. She's a very capable woman. Look, we all know this is just some kind of revenge thing because of the open marriage suggestion, but you're taking it too far." "Revenge?" I laughed. "Devin, I think you've got the wrong idea here. Aven asked for an open marriage, and I said yes. Now we're both free to pursue other relationships. Isn't that what she wanted? Not with her sister." "Why not?" "Maya's single, attractive, and available. Plus, she already knows all the family drama, so there won't be any awkward conversations about why my previous marriage didn't work out." "This is messed up, man." "You know what's messed up, Devin? Sneaking around behind someone's back for months instead of being honest about what you want. But hey, different approaches for different people, right?" I hung up before he could respond, then immediately called Maya. "Guess who just called me?" I said when she picked up. "Please tell me it was Devin." "Bingo, he's worried about Aven's feelings." "How sweet. Too bad he wasn't worried about her feelings when he was bragging to his buddies about his hot married conquest at the gym last week." "He said that?" "According to my friend Lisa, who works out at the same place. Apparently he's been telling anyone who'll listen about his affair with a high-maintenance marketing executive for weeks now." "Perfect. That gives me an idea for Phase 3. I'm listening." "How would you feel about making our relationship a little more public? Maybe dinner at Romano's tonight. It's Aven's favorite restaurant, and she has a client meeting there every Wednesday." "Oh, you're evil. I love it. What time?" 7:30. "And Maya?" "Wear something that'll make Aven question all her life choices." "Already planning on it." Romano's was packed when Maya and I arrived, but I'd called ahead and requested a table with a clear view of the bar area where Aven usually held her client meetings. Maya looked stunning in a black dress that was elegant without being flashy. The kind of outfit that suggested confidence rather than desperation. "You sure about this?" she asked as we were seated. "Too late to back out now. Besides, look who just walked in." Aven entered the restaurant with a middle-aged man in an expensive suit, presumably the client she was supposed to be meeting. She was laughing at something he'd said. Her professional charm turned up to maximum voltage. But when her eyes swept the dining room and landed on our table, the smile froze on her face. "She looks like she just swallowed a bee," Maya observed. "Wait for it." Aven excused herself from her client and walked straight over to our table. her heels clicking against the tile floor like a countdown timer. "What are you doing here?" she demanded, keeping her voice low but her tone sharp. "Having dinner with my girlfriend," I said. "Maya, you remember my wife, Aven, don't you?" "Soon-to-be ex-wife," Maya corrected, "and yes, we've met." Aven's eyes darted between us, and I could see her trying to figure out how much of this was real and how much was performance. "This is ridiculous, Colby. You're both being ridiculous." "I don't think there's anything ridiculous about two adults enjoying a nice meal together," Maya said. "The pasta here is excellent. You should try it sometime when you're not busy with work meetings." The emphasis on work meetings wasn't subtle, but it didn't need to be. Aven's face flushed red. "I need to talk to my husband, privately." "Actually," I said, "I think anything you have to say to me you can say in front of Maya. We don't keep secrets from each other." "Fine. This whole charade ends tonight. I know what you're trying to do, and it's not going to work." "What charade? I thought you wanted us both to explore other relationships." "Not with my sister." The couple at the table next to us had stopped eating and were openly staring now. Maya leaned forward, her voice honey-sweet but with an edge that could cut glass. "Aven, sweetie, I think you're making a scene. Your client is starting to look concerned." Aven glanced back toward the bar, where her client was indeed checking his watch and looking around nervously. "This isn't over," she hissed. "You're absolutely right," I said. "It's just getting started." She stormed back to her client, but I could see her hands shaking as she tried to regain her composure. Maya and I ordered dessert and took our time eating it, making sure to laugh loudly at each other's jokes and generally look like a couple having the time of their lives. When we finally left the restaurant, Aven was still at the bar with her client, but I could see her watching us through the window. I put my arm around Maya's shoulders as we walked to our cars, playing the part of the devoted boyfriend. "You're really good at this," Maya said once we were out of earshot. "Years of practice pretending to be happy at office parties." "So, what's next?" "Now we wait. Aven's going to go home tonight and realize that her perfect plan has backfired spectacularly. She'll probably call Devin, maybe even Janet, or some of her other friends. And tomorrow morning, she's going to try to regain control of the situation." "How?" "She'll threaten me. Try to use the house or the finances or maybe even the kids as leverage. But here's the thing Maya doesn't know yet. I've been planning for this possibility a lot longer than she has." Maya raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I've been married to Aven for 18 years. I know exactly how she thinks, how she operates, and what she'll do when she feels cornered, and I've been preparing accordingly." "Should I be worried about getting caught in the crossfire?" "Not if you trust me." She studied my face for a moment, then smiled. "You know what? I do trust you. And honestly, after watching Aven treat you like hired help for the past few years, it's nice to see you fighting back. Just remember, if this gets too intense, you can back out any time. I won't hold it against you." "Are you kidding? This is the most fun I've had in years. Besides, someone needs to knock my sister down a few pegs, and I'm happy to help." We said goodnight in the parking lot, but I noticed a familiar BMW parked across the street. Devin was sitting behind the wheel, probably waiting to follow Aven home and get a full report on the evening's events. I walked over and tapped on his window. He rolled it down reluctantly. "What do you want?" "Just wanted to thank you for calling me earlier. It really helped clarify a few things." "Like what?" "Like how serious Aven is about this whole open marriage thing. Maya and I had a great conversation about it over dinner. Really brought us closer together." Devin's jaw tightened. "You're playing with fire here, Colby." "Maybe. But you know what they say about fire. Sometimes you need to burn down the old to make room for something better." I walked back to my truck, leaving him sitting there in his expensive car, waiting for a woman who was probably already planning her next move in what was shaping up to be the most complicated game of chess either of us had ever played. The next morning brought the first real salvo in what I was starting to think of as the war of suburban succession. I woke up to 17 missed calls from Aven and a series of text messages that started reasonable and quickly devolved into threats. "We need to discuss the situation rationally." "I'm willing to forget about the Maya thing if you are." "Stop being so stubborn about this." "I'm serious, Colby. End this now." "Fine. If you want to play games, we'll play games." The last message had come through at 2 a.m, which meant she'd probably spent most of the night strategizing with Devin about how to regain control of the situation. I was making coffee when my phone rang. Maya's name appeared on the screen. "Please tell me you've seen the neighborhood Facebook page," she said without preamble. "I don't follow the neighborhood Facebook page. Too much drama about recycling schedules and barking dogs." "Well, you might want to check it out. Your wife just declared war." I opened Facebook and navigated to the Maple Grove Neighbors group. Aven had posted a long, carefully crafted message about personal attacks and family manipulation that stopped just short of naming names, but made it clear she considered herself the victim of some kind of elaborate harassment campaign. The post had been up for less than an hour and already had 37 comments, most of them from neighbors expressing sympathy and asking what had happened. Janet had chimed in with her own comment about certain people who couldn't handle mature conversations about marriage. "She's trying to control the narrative," I told Maya. "It's working. Half these people are acting like you committed some kind of crime." "That's fine. Let her have the first round. I've got something better planned." "What?" Remember how I mentioned I've been preparing for this longer than she realizes? Well, one of the things I prepared was a comprehensive backup of all our shared accounts, email histories, and phone records. Perfectly legal, since they're joint accounts in both our names. And I've got about 6 months' worth of evidence that's going to make her Facebook post look pretty ridiculous. I spent the next hour putting together a response that was part public statement, part evidence dump, and part strategic nuclear strike. I included screenshots of Aven's open marriage text, the hotel receipt, and several emails between Aven and Devon that I'd found in her shared cloud storage. Nothing explicit, but plenty of references to our special time together and keeping this between us. I posted it all to the neighborhood Facebook page with a simple caption. Since there seems to be some confusion about recent events, I thought I'd provide some context. Sometimes the truth is more complicated than it appears. The response was immediate and explosive. Within minutes, the comments section turned into a digital battlefield, with neighbors taking sides and demanding more details. Janet tried to defend Aven, but several other people pointed out that the evidence spoke for itself. My phone started ringing almost immediately. First Olivia, then my daughter Amelia, then what seemed like half the neighborhood. I turned the phone to silent and went to work. But the real fireworks started around noon when Devon called my office line. "You son of a..." he started, but I cut him off. "Language, Devon. This is a professional workplace." "You just destroyed Aven's reputation. Are you happy now?" "I didn't destroy anything. I just provided some context for her social media post. Transparency, remember? Isn't that what open marriages are all about? Those emails were private. Actually, they were sent from an account that's registered to both Aven and me. Technically, I had every right to access them." "This is harassment." "No, Devon. This is consequences. There's a difference." "I'm coming over there." "To my office? I wouldn't recommend that. Building security takes a dim view of non-employees making threats." But he'd already hung up. I called building security and gave them a heads up about a possible disturbance, then sat back to wait. Devon arrived 20 minutes later, demanding to see me and making enough noise that half the office could hear him arguing with the security guard. I walked down to the lobby to find him red-faced and gesticulating wildly, while the guard calmly explained that he couldn't enter the building without proper authorization. "There he is," Devon pointed at me like I was a fugitive he'd been tracking. "We need to talk." "I'm at work, Devon. If you want to schedule a meeting, you can call my assistant." "Don't give me that corporate nonsense. You know why I'm here." "Actually, I'm not sure I do. Could you be more specific?" He stepped closer, close enough that I could smell his expensive cologne mixed with what might have been desperation sweat. "Take down those posts, all of them." "Which posts?" "I post a lot of things. Cat videos, articles about supply chain management, photos of my breakfast." "You know exactly which posts." "Oh, you mean the ones with the screenshots." "I'm afraid I can't do that. Once information is out there in the digital sphere, it tends to take on a life of its own. Basic internet literacy." "This isn't a game, Colby." "You're absolutely right. It's not a game. It's my life, and I'm finally taking control of it." Devon looked like he wanted to take a swing at me, but the security guard was standing right there, and we were in full view of the building's main entrance. Instead, he leaned in close and lowered his voice. "You have no idea what you're messing with here. Enlighten me. Aven's not going to just roll over and let you humiliate her. She's got resources, connections. She can make your life very difficult." "More difficult than finding out my wife of 18 years has been lying to me for months? I doubt it." "She could take you for everything in the divorce." I smiled. "That's assuming there's anything left to take." The color drained from his face. "What do you mean?" "I mean, I've been moving assets around for the past week. Perfectly legally, of course. Amazing how much you can accomplish when you understand financial planning and have access to joint accounts." "You can't do that." "Actually, I can. And I did. But don't worry. I left enough in the checking account to cover this month's bills. I'm not completely heartless." Devon stared at me for a long moment, then turned and walked away without another word. I watched him get into his BMW and peel out of the parking lot like he was late for the most important meeting of his life, which, in a way, he probably was. The weekend brought a temporary ceasefire, but I knew it wouldn't last. Aven was regrouping, probably with Devon's help, and they'd be back with a new strategy soon enough. In the meantime, I had preparations to make. Saturday morning, I met with my attorney to finalize the asset protection measures I'd started earlier in the week. Everything valuable that I'd brought into the marriage or earned independently was now safely tucked away in accounts that Aven couldn't touch. The house, which was jointly owned, would have to be dealt with through the divorce proceedings, but I'd made sure she couldn't freeze me out financially in the meantime. Saturday afternoon, Maya and I made our relationship even more public with a trip to the local farmers market, where we ran into at least a dozen neighbors and made sure to look appropriately smitten with each other. Word would get back to Aven within hours. But the real test came Sunday evening, when I returned home to find Aven waiting in the living room with reinforcements, Janet, Devon, and a woman I didn't recognize who was probably some kind of professional mediator or attorney. "We need to talk," Aven said as soon as I walked through the door. "Looks like we've got quite a crowd for a private conversation." "This is Patricia Williams," Aven gestured to the unknown woman. "She's a family counselor who specializes in marital crisis intervention." "How thoughtful. But I'm afraid I already have professional representation for this situation." Patricia stepped forward with the kind of practiced calm that probably costs $200 an hour. "Mr. Varon, I understand you're feeling hurt and angry about your wife's suggestion regarding your marriage structure. But the way you're handling this is only making things worse for everyone involved. I'm sorry. I don't think we've been properly introduced, and I don't recall agreeing to any kind of counseling session." "Colby," Aven said, "we're trying to find a way to work this out without destroying our entire family." "Funny thing about that, I seem to remember you being the one who wanted to change the fundamental structure of our relationship. I'm just adapting to the new parameters you established." Devon, who'd been standing quietly by the fireplace, finally spoke up. "This has gone far enough. You're hurting people who don't deserve it." "Which people would those be, Devon?" "Maya, for one. You're using her to get back at Aven." "That's an interesting perspective. Have you asked Maya how she feels about it?" As if on cue, my phone buzzed with a text message. I glanced at the screen and smiled. "Actually, that's Maya now. She's outside." I walked to the front door and opened it. Maya was indeed standing on the porch, but she wasn't alone. Behind her were my kids, Ross and Amelia, home from college for an unscheduled visit. "Surprise," Maya said. "I thought this conversation might benefit from some additional perspective." Ross, my 22-year-old son, stepped forward and looked around the living room at the assembled group. "So this is the intervention Mom told us about." "Ross, honey," Aven started, but he held up a hand. "Mom, I've seen the Facebook posts. I've talked to Maya. I know what's really been going on." Amelia nodded. "We both do. And honestly, we're disappointed in you." The professional mediator looked uncomfortable, probably realizing this wasn't the kind of family dynamic she'd been hired to manage. Janet started to say something, but Maya cut her off. "Janet, before you start defending your friend, maybe you should know that half the neighborhood has been talking about Aven's work meetings for months. Everyone knew except Colby." "That's not true," Janet protested, but her voice lacked conviction. "Really? Because Lisa at the gym says you were there when Devon was bragging about his conquest? You knew exactly what was happening and you said nothing." The room fell silent. Even Patricia, the mediator, seemed to realize that her services weren't going to be needed. Aven looked around at the faces staring back at her. Her children, her sister, her husband, even her best friend. And I could see the moment when she realized she'd lost control of the narrative completely. "This isn't how this was supposed to go," she said quietly. "No," I agreed. "I imagine you thought I'd just quietly accept whatever arrangement you'd worked out with Devon here. Maybe I'd move into the guest room while you figured out your next steps. Keep things civilized and discreet." "Colby?" "But here's the thing, Aven. You forgot that I'm really good at logistics. And the first rule of logistics is that you always need to plan for contingencies." I walked over to the coffee table and picked up a manila folder I'd left there earlier. "This contains copies of all the financial documents related to our divorce proceedings, which will be finalized next Friday. The house will be sold and the proceeds split according to Minnesota state law. I've already found an apartment across town." "Next Friday?" Aven's voice was barely a whisper. Turns out that when both parties agree to the divorce and there are no contested issues, the process moves pretty quickly. But we never agreed. Actually, we did. Your text message about wanting an open marriage constituted a clear statement of intent to dissolve the marital relationship. My attorney was very thorough in documenting that. Devin stepped forward. You can't just... Actually, I can, and I did. I turned to face him directly. But don't worry, Devin. Aven will be free to pursue whatever relationship she wants, with whoever she wants, completely in the open. Patricia, the mediator, finally found her voice. Mr. Varon, this seems very sudden, perhaps with some time and professional guidance. Ma'am, I appreciate your concern, but this situation has been developing for months. The only thing that was sudden was my wife's decision to be honest about it. Ross looked at his mother with something that might have been pity. Mom, why didn't you just ask for a divorce if you weren't happy? Because I hoped we could work something out. Find a way to have both. Both what? Amelia asked. Security and excitement. Stability and passion. Maya shook her head. Aven, you can't have everything. That's not how life works. Says the woman who's stealing my husband. I'm not stealing anything. Colby and I are friends. Good friends who enjoy each other's company and don't lie to each other about what we want. I looked around the room one more time, at the faces of people who'd been part of my life for years, some of whom would probably never speak to me again after tonight. I think that covers everything, I said. Patricia, thank you for your time, but your services won't be needed. Janet, it's been interesting. Devin... I paused, considering. Good luck with everything. I headed for the stairs, but Aven's voice stopped me. Colby, wait, please. Can we talk? Just the two of us? I turned back to look at her. For a moment, I saw the woman I'd married 18 years ago, younger, more vulnerable, still capable of admitting when she'd made a mistake. What would you like to talk about, Aven? Whether there's any way to fix this. That depends. Are you willing to give up Devin and commit to rebuilding our marriage? She glanced at Devin, then back at me. The pause was all the answer I needed. That's what I thought, I said. Some things can't be fixed, Aven. They can only be replaced. I went upstairs to pack a bag. By the time I came back down, everyone had left except Maya, who was sitting in the kitchen with a cup of coffee. How are you feeling? She asked. Relieved, mostly, and grateful. For what? For having a friend who was willing to help me through the most complicated week of my life, she smiled. What are friends for? So what happens now? Now you start over. Figure out what you want your life to look like without Aven in it. And us? We go back to being what we always were, family. Just not the kind of family Aven was expecting. I grabbed my bag and headed for the door, then paused and looked back at the house one more time. You know what the funny thing is? I said. What? She was right about the open marriage thing, just not in the way she thought. How do you mean? Sometimes you have to break something wide open before you can see what was really inside it all along. We walked out together, leaving the lights on and the door unlocked. Someone else could worry about securing the house tonight. I had more important things to think about, like figuring out what came next in a life that was suddenly, unexpectedly, completely my own. The divorce was finalized the following Friday, just as I'd promised. Aven didn't contest any of the terms, and Devin didn't show up to the proceedings. According to Maya, they'd both taken vacation time from work and disappeared for a week, probably trying to figure out how to rebuild their reputations in a town where everyone now knew their business. I moved into my new apartment the same day, a small but comfortable place with a view of the river and enough space for the life I was planning to build. Maya helped me unpack, and we ordered pizza and watched terrible movies until late into the night. So, she said, as the credits rolled on the second romantic comedy, what's the plan now? Honestly, I have no idea. For the first time in 20 years, I get to figure that out as I go. Sounds terrifying. Yeah, I said, settling back into my new couch and my new living room and my new life. It really does. But as I looked around at the boxes still waiting to be unpacked and the blank walls waiting to be decorated, I realized that terrifying and exciting weren't mutually exclusive. Sometimes they were exactly the same thing. And for the first time since this whole mess started, that felt like exactly the right place to be.